Last work, the closing work for the church in the sealing time. Laodicea was raised for a divine purpose, and it is described strikingly by Sister White and is described as in a special sense. In a special sense, Seventh-day Adventists have been set in the world as watchmen and light bearers. To them has been entrusted the last warning for a perishing world. On them is shining wonderful light from the Word of God. They have been given a work of the most solemn import, the proclamation of the first, second, and third angels' messages. There is no other work of so great importance. They are to allow nothing else to absorb their attention. Now, overlay the special sense with why she said she trembled for the people because the Alpha and the Omega of deadly heresies would be received. The Omega will follow and will be received by those who are not willing to heed the warning God has given. It's a fact. Over many discussions on the subject, the Alpha and the Omega of deadly heresies, it was received in General Conference session in 1980 with the 27 fundamental beliefs. It has been embedded in the fundamentals, and therefore fundamentals 2, 4, 5 equals the Alpha and the Omega of deadly heresies. So how does that affect Laodicea? In the sealing time of the 144,000, did Laodicea betray their sacred trust as she warned? Here we see that the church, the Lord's sanctuary, was the first to feel the stroke of the wrath of God. The ancient men, Ezekiel 9:6, those to whom God had given great light and who had stood as guardians of the spiritual interests of the people, had betrayed their trust. Who can say the betrayal of the sacred trust is not the Omega of deadly heresies, with God, the eternal Son, fundamental 4, and the Trinity? Only to think you stand okay with God in the sealing time of the 144,000? What do you make of the meaning? In a special sense. Does a special sense mean Laodicea, by officializing fundamentals 2 and 4 and the 27s, the guardians for the people have not betrayed their sacred trust? Surely you would not require the answer to be spoon-fed to you. But worse, Laodicea today hosts a new generation of ministers and elders and have an adept media like other churches, sharing also the love of Jesus, church growth, baptisms, and church building programs, and the Sabbath, which is no longer unique. Remember, there are today over 500 plus churches recognizing the Sabbath. But then how can Laodicea proclaim the pure mark of truth of Ezekiel 9 in respect to the first angel's warning of Revelation 14 in the sealing time of the 144,000 and parrot the abominations, the doctrines of Rome at the same time about the Godhead? Answer: it's impossible. Laodicea have never, not once, resolved the Alpha and the Omega of deadly heresies. How does that make any sense in a special sense? There is no longer a special sense existing at all. The problem? The Alpha and the Omega of deadly heresies has never been resolved. And yet, according to Sister White, the pure mark of truth is crucial in the sealing time of the 144,000. And what is the pure mark engraved by the men in linen in the sealing time of Revelation 7? See these links. Yes, you read correctly. It's the pure mark of truth, no guile, of Revelation 14:5. And over what issue? First angel's warning, which confirms he who made, who is the Alpha and the Omega of truth. So the only way to resolve the Omega of deadly heresies is giving heed to Christ's eternal righteousness, his eternal identity, and that is predicted in Revelation 13 with the Lamb slain from before the foundation of the world, Revelation 13:8. But even worse, the betrayal of a sacred trust is an abomination that leads to what? For the answer, as discussed recently, and it is unthinkable, the Alpha and the Omega of deadly heresies is the pardonable sin. God said the sleeping virgins, the pastors, elders, and laity of Laodicea, who were given much light, say all the right contextual things about the three angels' messages, and yet today it's badly tainted and compromised with two main aspects. Number one, the Alpha and the Omega of deadly heresies in their fundamentals 2 and 4, constrained by the National Sunday Law of the 1890s, contrary to Revelation 17:16. So what does the Bible really contribute about the closing work for the church in the sealing time? What did she really contribute, and why have few paid any attention? What's grossly worse, Laodicea baptized folk in a growing church building programs into the fullest doctrinal theology of Papa Pointy Hat. Which is the deadly theology of God, the Eternal Son, fundamental number 4. And it's the omega of deadly heresies, and it's verbatim the doctrine of the Scarlet Woman's teaching of God. The problem of the omega of deadly heresies is that Laodicea have no clue that they destroy he who is the Alpha and the Omega, and have no first angel's warning in the process. How? They obliterate Christ's eternal identity from John 1:1. And Laodicea does this with the Triune Trinity, fundamental 2, God the Eternal Son, number 4, abominations, and heteros, Holy Spirit, abomination, fundamental number 5, which is the central doctrine of the woman. Mystery Babylon, the mother of harlots. Mystery Babylon the Great. Open and see page 17 for the handbook for today's Catholic in this link. These facts cannot be denied, and those who try and do so continue their blasphemous affront before heaven. Page 17. Central doctrine of the Catholic faith. Upon it are based all the other teachings of the Church. So the obliteration of hologos of John 1:1 and ensure that with God, the Eternal Son, number 4, even ever be considered the pure mark of truth in the sealing time, 100 time of Revelation 7 and the 144,000. It doesn't. But far worse, heaven has described Laodicea's condition, miserable, wretched, and in need of nothing, which means their mouth is full of guile. And heaven said, those sealed in the sealing time in their mouths was no guile. Otherwise, Revelation 14:1-5 is false. The individual cost for not paying attention, forfeiture of the sealing in the sealing time of the 144,000, Revelation 14, has to be. Matthew 25 is the parable of the 10 virgins, then relevant. Is the parable of the 10 virgins then relevant for this discussion? Has to be. Fact is, the wise virgins have oil in their lamps, and they respond to the call to come out. And the gift is, guess what? Eternal righteous by faith and the key of David. Because there exists the free gift of eternal righteousness. With the everlasting gospel, there is eternal righteousness by faith, and this is the root of righteousness by faith. And it's the key of David. And how? By way of the purity of Christ's eternal identity, for he is the Alpha and Omega, doctrine of Revelation 22:13-16. Even the devil doesn't argue about that fact, and frankly, who is around to argue that it's false? Well, if you try, there is no seal of God in the sealing time. So where does that leave you with the Triune Trinity doctrine in Fundamental 2, and God the Eternal Son, Fundamental 4 anyway? But guess who are supporting in the time frame of the abomination of desolation? Guess who you are supporting in the time frame of the abomination of desolation of Matthew 24:15? Answer: the 2 Thessalonians 2 guy. because he totally is the law of one God, and with no competition now in Laodicea, because that was settled in the 1980s with Fundamentals 2, 4, and 5. Is it any wonder the closing work is for the church in the sealing time, and confirms why she said the omega of deadly heresies would be received and she trembled? It's not difficult to realize the 2 Thessalonians 2 guy will have no objections to those who support the one God, especially unknowingly, of blasphemy against heaven. It's listed in Revelation 13. Why not reread those set of blasphemies? And there was given unto him, the eighth king, a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. And power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. Why the need to reread the list of blasphemies is because of the testimony against the law of one, which is, if you haven't realized as yet, is for its purpose to trash the first angel's warning, which is why eternal righteousness by faith of Revelation 13:8 exists, and why Jesus said it is for those who have ears to hear. And the beast blasphemes God's tabernacle in heaven, where the ministration of Christ as great high priest after the order of Melchizedek presides. Right? Does that now give you a semblance of insight why the court equals earth probation for individuals is not measured? Revelation 11:2. Important in the 1260 days of the first beast, and then the plus 30 days of the second beast. So what then does it matter about the seal of God? Revelation 7 now. Most think nothing of or about it. Just got to do good works and work on perfection of character, which is the motivation of self-righteousness anyway. Those who are sealed in the sealing time are sealed with no guile, and therefore in no manner can they annul the first angel's warning. But what about the foolish virgins of Matthew 25? Two things. There are two things to consider about the foolish virgins. One, in their mouth was guile, and two, the door was shut. Shut because they have no key of David. The door is shut. That's as serious as it gets. And keep in mind, it's at midnight, the time of the loud cry of Revelation 17:16 and Revelation 18. They get the last call first to go ye out to a meeting of the bridegroom. Why the closing work for the church? Out of what? Yes, away from and out of those fundamentals 2, 4, and 5 of mystery, Babylon, mother of harlots, for she is destroyed in the events of Revelation 17:16 to 18. If you wish to argue, read first what the true and faithful witness said about Laodicea is spewed according to Revelation 3. This calling out was mentioned uniquely in the Tasmanian camp meeting in Australia in 1896. My mind was carried to the future when the signal would be given. Another must read. Returning to in a special sense, and back to the sealing time of the 144, it is evident to be in Laodicea today, there are good folk who love God, yet why did she say in a special sense the work and then say the omega would be received? And she also said the closing work is for, not by, the church in the sealing time. And if you do not get those basics right, all that one must rely upon is the basics of salvation, righteous by faith in the gospel. But the time today is far elevated than the 100 years from 1880 to 1980. So the question for the reader to think through is, because of Revelation 13:8 and eternal righteous by faith of the Lamb slain from before the foundation of the world, will the basics of righteous by faith completely miss the importance of the terms she applied, which was, in a special sense, they engross the entire mind and the whole attention and the pure mark of truth? There exists an accumulation of counsel in the closing work. So about the closing work, which is for the church in the sealing time of the 144, the last work, this is more important than the first, seems to be the case because she, in 5T 207-12, is saying because the closing work is for the church, Laodicea. It's like There's the answer. That's where the last 5 p.m. workers are to be found, for the very reason they were raised for the 3 a.m. And they, 3 angels' message. And they were sent a most precious message. It failed in 1888, and now the most precious message in its right setting, eternal righteousness by faith of the Godhead, the first angel. The reason is Laodicea were given a most precious message, the 3 angels' messages, and they say they are preaching this. But how does that work when the pure mark of truth about the creedal doctrines of fundamentals 2 and 4 remain in their mouths? And then there are those who hear the warning of the first angel and acknowledge it is true, but choose to remain in Laodicea believing they can effect change inside. It's a foolish conclusion. Those who remained with the temple in AD 70 ended up destroyed, as he who made warned anyway. But none are willing to recognize the call out of Laodicea and to be amongst the Philadelphians of Revelation 3. She's Sister White's own conclusion about the closing work in the sealing time of the 144. It's one thing to share details of the scriptures, but the other thing is the importance of the last work, which is a special status, and even Sister White compares it to the 144,000. And when that subject of the 144 is mentioned, whoa, it's a really touchy subject to even mention. It's like taboo. It is spiritualized away, and do you get a smorgasbord of theological poor food? So comes a problem. Is the closing work for the church to those who remain inside, and then to explain why there are no commentaries about Luke 21:29, which is the fig tree parable, and then of Revelation 17:16 and the destruction of the scarlet hag, or Zechariah 8:24? Laodicea have no spiritual thesis to rely upon, let alone resolve what Sister White trembled about with respect to the Alpha and Omega of deadly heresies. Is Sister White saying the closing work for the church that in Laodicea is where the final workers for the sealing are to be found? Why would this be the case? For the main reason the church was raised by he who made at the time of 1844 and has been their main purpose and mission since inception. When the workers begin to realize there is no national Sunday law to occur and they recognize the Bible emphasis moves to Isaiah 2 and its relationship with Zechariah 8:23, and the 10 men, kings, who grab the skirt, in fact fulfills Revelation 17. So we reread the scriptures, yes, because it is so little read. It says, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold out of all languages of the nations, even shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, We will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore dost thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. 10 men? The beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and one is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was, and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called, and chosen, and faithful. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate, and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. Laodicean's problem is Sister White had no commentary on the above, as well as the content of Isaiah 2 and law and great city, though she did refer to an oppressive law. There is absolutely nothing by way of commentary on Ezekiel 8:23. 2 adjustments. The last 5 p.m. workers only require two adjustments. The two main adjustments equals awareness, the prophecy, A, Luke 21, fundamentals 2, 4, 5, then B, the fig tree parable, C, Isaiah 2, third template settings, and D, Zechariah 8:23 with 10:10, Kings of Revelation 17. Number two, that the grandest insight ever given to mortals is the simplicity of John 1:1 in connection to the first angel, and then there is the call to depart Laodicea, because Laodicea won't change her fundamentals 2, 4, and 5, and if they don't heed the initial call, they lose out in the sealing time and have to respond when God brings about the destruction of the scarlet hag and her palatial shack, Revelation 17:16. And then it's their last opportunity to come out of her. That's when the sealing time is just about over. Over at the end of the fourth trumpet. So then there's Ezekiel 9 to deal with, and the work of the men in linen, and the 6 men with sharp weapons. Well, Sister White gave a strong commentary on Ezekiel 9 in 5T207-212, and few even want to acknowledge its content. But God said there would be 4 trumpets prior to the first woe. That is an important detail. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten. And the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, and so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the 3 angels which are yet to sound. And they occur prior to the king of the north and king of the south's battle, and it can be shown the 4 horse riders of the apocalypse equals World War III, Daniel 11:40-45. By the time of the 5th trumpet, the time of the first woe, there is no opportunity of the seal of God. The sealing time is finished, and those not sealed are badly tormented. Concerning the 5th trumpet, and it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only on those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months, and their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. The question then is, do they get another chance going further into the second woe after the first woe is past? The answer has to be no. The clincher is God has already identified in the sealing time who were sealed by the men in linen, and when the sealing time of 144 by the men in linen has closed. Ezekiel 9. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. That detail gives a depth of truth to the details of the first woe, because the seal of the 2 fathers in the forehead, see this link, is essential for the time of the 1290 days of Matthew 24:15. According to the context of the above events, those who are reading along, and also the casual observer having a gander, do they really take their Christianity seriously? It's not about trying to right the ship of Laodicea. That's impossible. It's now the closing work for the church, and it's all about the sealing of the 144, or as Sister White was telling a bunch of porkies. That should hold some attention, like bare minimum at least. The problem immediately with the worldly minded in Laodicea is this approach set out by Sister White, the closing work for the church in the sealing time of the 144, is it could be argued that any sharing this sort of call are ipso facto claiming to be the 144. Possibly, but guess that's irrelevant. It's the fact that the demons know who are and who are not sealed at the time of the 5th trumpet. To be sure, one is a servant of he who made. Whether one is sealed with eternal righteousness, the end conclusion is inevitable. It means no guile in their mouths, and that the 2 fathers are engraved, which is an indicator of importance of why the Alpha and the Omega of deadly heresies must be resolved. Did this call arise in the time of Christ? Yes. Matthew 10:6, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So why did Sister White place the context of the seal of God with Laodicea and then speak of it as the sealing time of the 144,000 and not Laodicea? Read again the context. 3T266. The true people of God who have the spirit of the work of the Lord and the salvation of souls at heart will ever view sin in its real sinful character. They will always be on the side of faithful and plain dealing with sins which easily beset the people of God, especially in the closing work for the church in the sealing time of the 144,000 who are to stand without fault before the throne of God. Will they feel most deeply the wrongs of God's professed people? This is forcibly set forth by the prophet's illustration of the last work under the figure of the men each having a slaughter weapon in his hand. One man among them was clothed with linen, with a writer's inkhorn by his side. And the Lord said unto him, Go through. And you can read the rest here. Who are standing in the counsel of God at this time? Is it those who virtually excuse wrongs among the professed people of God and who murmur in their hearts, if not openly, against those who would reprove sin? Is this those who take their stand against them and sympathize with those who commit wrong? No, indeed. Unless they repent and leave the work of Satan in oppressing those who have the burden of the work and in holding up the hands of sinners in Zion, they will never receive the mark of God's sealing approval. They will fall in the general destruction of the wicked, represented by the work of the 5 men bearing slaughter weapons. Mark this point with care. Those who receive the pure mark of truth, wrought in them by the power of the Holy Spirit, represented by a man, by a mark, by the man in linen, are those that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the church. Their love for purity and the honor and glory of God is such, and they have so clear a view of the exceeding sinfulness of sin that they are represented as being in agony, even sighing and crying. Read the 9th chapter of Ezekiel. But the general slaughter of all those who do not thus see the wide contrast between sin and righteousness, and do not feel as those who do who stand in the counsel of God and receive the mark, is described in the order to the 5 men with slaughter weapons. Go ye after him through the city, and so do you now wish to remain passive and yielding to central doctrine of the Roman Catholic Church and call yourself the remnant church, when all you have is the omega of deadly heresies, as in Fundamentals 2 and 4, and then in process and hold ideas of the National Sunday Law, and in the process forfeit the seal of God in the sealing time of the 144,000? The pure mark of truth is not the alpha and the omega of deadly heresies.